Okay, tonight is meeting number 17 of the advisory team on December 8th, 2021, and we are in the Community Development Building, and it is 6:05. So we're starting just a few minutes late, and I'm going to put these, we've got two recorders. I'm going to put one over here by you guys, and then one up. Okay, so let's just get started. We'll go really fast around the table for our welcome and check-in. This is just name because name, first name, last name, and what's in like one sentence, what's one of your favorite holiday traditions? Jan,
Not first. My name is Janet Santiago Huerta. My favorite, holiday tradition, I would say is, when my kids were little, we used to, go outside and, make a snowman. Yes.
Hi, I'm Marvin Bradford, and my favorite holiday tradition is feasting because I'm a good eater.
I'm Rachel Sauer, and I would have to say my favorite holiday tradition is probably decorating the Christmas tree.
I'm Samantha Malcolm, and I also like to decorate our Christmas tree and do any other Christmas crafts and activities.
See, you're going to come over to my house because you're crafty. So yeah.
Steve Blaine. I like getting my wife started on the decorating because once she gets going, she goes crazy about it. So it's like last year we finally got everything organized. So I got one spot in my attic. I got bins marked and everything. So it went a lot easier this year. And then baking cookies. I love to do that.
Okay. All right. Oh, and I'm Michelle Weisey. And what's my favorite tradition? I would say Christmas Eve and Christmas Day with my husband's family and our family. We get super lucky because we don't have to travel. Everybody comes here. So it's very fun. Okay, and we should have Corey and Alexis coming in soon. I wanted to do, before we dive into the housing, really the meat of the meeting, give an update on the racial equity plan, which, as you know, came before this group a couple times and actually came from a lot of the recommendations that this team gave first last December, and then with some of the additional recommendations that went to the council at the end of the summer, and through all of your discussions. And what I did is just, when you see highlighted, they're just kind of hand highlighted. Those are things that the advisory team really had a lot of input on. You might differ or find one that I missed that the team had a lot of input on, but I just kind of wanted to show this group, some of the specific things that this group mentioned are in here. And the plan went before the council the first meeting in November, and they looked at it and talked about it. And really the only suggestion they had at that point was to add a definitions page, so we added that. And then it came before them on November 22nd, and it unanimously passed. So these will be the things that the city, in addition to other things, works on and does in 2022. And just to point out, I think on page 15, this group, and it's the last meeting in October when you went through the racial equity plan again, and we had those boards all, up on the wall in the other room. And the idea was we got to be more accountable. The city has to be more accountable. You can't just say you're going to do stuff and then, does it happen or not. So really action 5A and 5B came from that meeting. Those were new. Those were in the latest version. It really talks about, like in 5B, increase accountability with each department, board, and commission to report actions on equity. So you see right above that, it says that each board and commission has to plan its own action steps, and it will be responsible to the council. And even here at 5B2, job assessments will begin to start including equity goals made in conjunction with the departments and cities' missions so that people are accountable at their yearly review on equity, on equity goals that are in their department. So that will start happening right away in January, where departments and boards and commissions are putting together action plans, their own individual plans for how they can make some positive change. So I just wanted to bring that to the attention of the group. There were some other specific language type of things, I guess, like in Action 5C. We had BIPOC in there, and there were some members here who said, we're not real fans of that, so, we want each group really named. And so wherever that was, we changed it back to Black, Indigenous, Biracial, Latinx, Asian, and other persons of color. So really the advisory team had a big, huge part in this plan. So I just, A, wanted to say thank you, and B, just show you that it came to some fruition and that there will be some action steps. And then in the budget, there are budgeted items, line items in the 2022 budget directly tied to some of these things so that they can happen. I think this group talked a lot about events in the summer, and so there is very specific things geared toward having an African American history and culture event, and there are some budget line items directly to that. So I'll just be quiet here and just see if anybody has any questions on that. I just wanted to bring that back around and bring it to your attention, I guess. On page 16, financially support the organizing and implementation of a new event celebrating Black history and culture. So 6A1, 6A2 talks about more financial support for the Hispanic Heritage Festival. And 3, which was came from this group asking the grant application to specifically say how they will reach out to other groups and all communities. So anyway, when you go back home and if you look at this and you have any questions or comments, just email and let me know. Or if you have things now, we've got a few minutes to bring those up.
So for 6A, the supporting, organizing, and implementation, for a new event celebrating Black history and culture, is that focused particularly on local or regional? Just like the Hispanic Heritage Festival welcomes a variety of cultures because there's a variety of different Hispanic cultures, so are we going to target more I'm not certain what the demographics are for Hispanic communities here within Red Wing. I don't know if there are more South Americans, more Middle Americans, or, someone still from North America, Mexico, Cuban even. It's a wide range, so are there any target groups here? Because I'm not sure what our demographics are, and likewise for Black history and culture, is that regional Black history here, Black people of Minnesota, or Black people of the Middle West in general, or just U.S. in general, because we're local, we're Red Wing, so we might want to keep it as close to home as possible.
Mm-hmm. And I think the idea is to, this conversation around this table was we need people to really organize it who, not have city people organize it.
Right.
The community.
But to have the community organize it, yeah. And so to help pay for someone to organize that, Janet, you can probably talk about because you're so involved in the Hispanic Heritage Festival.
Yeah,
which is
that
really
regional. They do this festival. I think so. We have a couple of years that we've been celebrating this in September. Yes, a lot of work, and what I just see that we need to, spread the word because we have enough attendance, but I think so. The communities, Red Wing is getting bigger, so we can reach out. The whole town.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to kind of, because I had questions too about that one, along with Marvin. because it says financially support the organizing and implementation of a new event, would that be, I'm assuming it's just the financial part, but like as of now, we have no plan in place, correct?
So
Or
we would-
organizers, so then it would probably fall down on whoever
Well, it depends on.
brings it to their attention, or are they gonna seek people to organize this event?
Yeah, so the idea was that hopefully someone will, it would be to pay someone to organize this, not just have it be someone who volunteers, so it would be paying to help organize this. We have to figure that out. Does it fall on city staff to reach out and try to find those folks? Is it the Human Rights Commission? I've also heard of some groups that are trying to kind of like more of a grassroots group that might be forming. And so is it working with them to try to see if there's someone who wants to organize? So this just got passed a couple weeks ago, but there's, like you said, Sam, there's no, here's how this should happen. So whether or not that's a small group that gets together to kind of.
So it's just kind of like a waiting game right now until we find like an actual.
It's like, let's get that money and put aside.
Organizers, okay.
So I'd love to
Yeah, good question.
talk more about that and, yes.
Perfect.
Okay, so I know that wasn't really an answer, but that's what it is. It's money set aside, and so that the city also knows, and that means sort of like some in-kind, also helping to set up and, all the park and stuff like that. But we need to work with the community to figure out who would be part of that organizing and pay people for their time to do that, so it's not just another volunteer effort.
Right.
Okay. Any other questions? I mean, there's a lot here, so we can talk about it too, or you can call me in. Okay. So tonight, and again, if you think of some things, write them down. We might be able to get to them at the end. Let's dive in because we have a guest tonight, and we have her down for 6:15, and we're right about there. And she's listening. There's Leah. Hi. Okay.
Hi everyone, good evening.
Yes. Leah, can you, I was going to have a whole introduction for you, and then, of course, then I forgot. So can you just give us sort of your introduction of your title? And really, Leah is here to tell us what Three Rivers does, because last time there were a lot of questions and, a lot of things that people thought should happen. And Three Rivers does some of these, but we have probably more collaboration, so that this is a multi-county organization that covers Goodhue County. Yep. So Leah's going to tell us some of the things that they do, and then specifically some projects on affordable and supportive housing projects that they've made happen in other communities right around us. And how did that happen and that kind of stuff. So Leah, why don't you take it away and we'll listen to you.
Sounds great. Well, hi again, everyone. As you heard, Leah Hall, the Community Development Director at Three Rivers Community Action. I wish I was there with you in person, but I am actually working out of the area this week. So what I'll do, I'm just going to share my screen here and get started. I'm going to tell you a bit about Three Rivers, as you heard, and some of the things that we do, dive into some projects, and then at the end, have some ideas of different places we could possibly expand in the Red Wing area, and then to kind of hear your thoughts. I'm going to go through in kind of presentation mode, but please, if you've got questions and you want to stop me and for more clarification, please feel free to do that. I want to keep this as casual as I can. So Three Rivers Community Action. A bit about us. So as you heard, we serve Goodhue, Rice, Wabasha, and Olmsted counties. That's really our core community action counties, but we also will provide programs in other areas. So, for example, our Homeownership program covers 22 counties across southeast and south central Minnesota. We have a coordination entity called Continuum of Care that covers 20 some counties. And we have Hiawatha Land Transit and so on that expand beyond our core territory. But what I mean by Community Action Agency is that we've been operating in this area for over 50 years. We were established to provide a wide range of programs similar to other community action agencies across across the state and across the nation. So we're part of this community action network, and to kind of put this into perspective, there's about 1,000 of us across the nation and about 24 now in Minnesota. Every single county in the state is covered by a community action agency, and we all share the same type of mission, which is really providing a range of programs with the goal of both eliminating poverty or eradicating poverty, but also providing opportunities to help people and communities thrive. So if you can imagine not only addressing the immediate crisis of poverty, but also finding ways to build assets and providing opportunities and tools for folks to improve their lives and the lives of their neighbors. So I'm going to give you a bit of an overview of all of the services that we provide. I've got our website here at the top. There's a lot that we do. If you're curious to kind of dive in there and you can click on some of these items. So we serve over 15,000 people every year across the region. We do that through things like Head Start, I mentioned transportation, Hiawatha Transit, energy assistance, weatherization. I'm going to dive into some of that, housing development, our family advocacy services. I'll tell you a bit more about that as we move along. Older adult services, so we do the Meals on Wheels. We advocate and we assist caregivers that care for their elders. Continuum of Care, which really is the coordination body of homeless services. We're actually transitioning that to another entity, and I'll tell you about that as well. And our Homeownership program. So I want to start there. The Achieve Homeownership program is a program that we established that really identifies and addresses the various homeownership faced by diverse households across the state. So back in 2008, in response to the gap between white households and households of color, that gap of homeownership, Three Rivers created this program. So this really is a culturally tailored program that provides financial literacy, homebuyer education, and pre-purchase counseling. Some of the main elements I like to highlight about this is really with our one-to-one financial coaching and our advisors' community connections. So our advisors speak multiple languages, they represent different communities. Right now we've got Spanish speakers, folks that speak Somali, we're hiring additional Somali speakers. We also are well connected with local translators that speak Korean, Korean, and some other languages that are popular in our region. So we also provide education and best practices with local realtors and lenders. So not every realtor, not every lender understands the intricacies of working with diverse households, or perhaps even working with a translator or working with somebody who doesn't speak English as their first language. And so our staff are out there working one-to-one with realtors and lenders, everything from just contacting them, communicating with them on a one-to-one level, but then also presenting at different gatherings that those realtors or lenders may have. And we do other things in partnership with lenders, like exploring different mortgage opportunities. And so right now we're working with a local lender, for example, that is going to develop, we hope, develop a local mortgage product that works with ITIN numbers. In other words, if you're not familiar with an ITIN number, it's essentially a number that someone's assigned to pay taxes. And so regardless of what folks will call status or quote documentation, these ITIN numbers are for anybody who's paying taxes. And so we are working with that and hoping to further develop opportunities in that area. A lot of our work is shared word of mouth and sharing our success stories. So the families that we serve tell their families, their neighbors, that we're a trustworthy entity to work with, especially with our folks that are well integrated in the communities that we aim to serve. And last but not least, this work since 2008 has really changed how we approach communities. It really has informed how we provide work across the entire region. So next area I want to dive into briefly here is our homeless prevention and eviction prevention services. So these are folks that are behind on back rent. They're facing eviction either right now or in the very near future. They're coming to us because they need assistance, both immediate financial assistance to resolve that crisis with back rent, but they also need some help really navigating this stuff with Landlord. You'd be surprised how many times households come to us in a crisis with back rent, and a lot of it is really negotiating with the landlord. Some of that we can mitigate with payment plans. Some of it is that the tenant was withholding rent because there needed to be some repairs that were happening, and so we help them navigate how that really can work with a landlord. We also work with legal aid, also known as SMERLs in the region, for other maybe more detailed or maybe more complicated tenant landlord issues. So they're with us as well. And so these are really wraparound services like SNAP, EAT, if you're not familiar with those fabulous short words here, but really what I mean is SNAP is food support, so helping folks get on food support, and also energy assistance. And so when we assist folks with dealing their immediate rent crisis, we're also enrolling them in other services and community-based services to help them really maintain and achieve housing stability over the long term. We also serve folks who are experiencing homelessness right now. We call them rapid rehousing and transitional housing. But for the purposes tonight, the most important thing to know is these programs are short-term programs that help people stabilize housing in place out in the community and scattered sites. So we're serving folks that are coming out of a homeless situation, we're rehousing them into the community, providing financial assistance and case management supports to get them stabilized. Our referral source is the coordinated entry list. I won't go too deep into that, but what the coordinated entry list is really is the list that is managed across the region by the continuum of care. This lists all people in all the counties that we serve that are seeking permanent housing that are experiencing homelessness right now. And so when we have openings in these programs, we're contacting the list manager and we're getting folks off the list. It is county specific, and so our advocate, Doreen, that you may know right there in Mifflin, she is pulling referrals right off of the list of folks that say, I want to live, or I'm currently residing, or I want to live in Goodhue County to serve them. We provide housing search and placement, so that is finding the place that will work for them best in the community that they want to live in, and ensuring that they stabilize. Again, this is short-term rent, deposit, and some other assistance. So permanent supportive housing, I'm going to define this now because in just a minute I'm going to dive into our housing projects that incorporate these units. And I know there's a lot of mishmash of different words that people use to describe supportive housing or homeless housing. And so really what I mean by supportive housing is addressing housing for folks that are, quote, high barrier. What I mean by that, these are folks that need longer term assistance to stabilize. So it could be someone that has a mental health challenge. Maybe they've faced a chemical dependency challenge. They could have had some issues with felony conviction or some other things that are really creating a barrier to housing. And so they need us, they want to work with us hand in hand to stabilize. So this is long-term rental assistance. A lot of times rental assistance doesn't end. It stays with that person the whole time that they are in that housing. Intensive support services, no time limits on these types of projects. So what we do is Three Rivers incorporates these in our housing development projects. There are other entities that do scattered site, but the way we run things with this program or this approach, we feel it works best when we're in control of housing development and of course the landlord entity to make sure that folks are successful. So we create housing, so housing development. What do I mean by this? Well, we do a community-based approach. So we essentially go into communities across the region, and other parts of the state even at this time, and work with them to figure out what do they want in their community and what really is the best fit. This is all affordable housing, and so affordable housing in our world is housing that is affordable to people at 60% of the area median income or less. And to give you an idea of what I mean by that, we're talking about $36,800 for one person, at $42,000 for two people, $47,000 for three, and so on incrementally. So just so you have that in mind, what I mean by affordable housing. So we're a mission-based developer. We do this because we believe that everyone deserves affordable housing. It's a human right. We recycle all the funds, all the developer fees, and anything that we earn back into other projects. We partner with local nonprofits, cities, counties to make this happen. And of course, as I mentioned, we incorporate these permanent supportive housing units in these projects. So what we've done so far, and it's been since the 1990s, late 1990s, we developed over 834 units and counting. We're closing 3 more projects as I'm speaking to you now, hopefully the next couple months. We brought over $109.7 million in TDC's total development costs. So the total cost of the project, we brought those funds into local communities across the region. So my first example is Prairiewood townhomes in Faribault. This is a new construction that we did. It was occupiable in about 2015. It includes 30 units of affordable rental housing, and again, that's affordable to folks at 60% AMI, as we just discussed. But we had 5 units of permanent supported housing there. Three Rivers is the the advocacy entity that provides case management services for all 5 of our tenant households. Some have children, some are singles. And we did this through a local partnership with the city. They provided TIF, the local HRA helped with the land, and a local bank also provided us an affordable first mortgage to make this happen. The second example is Fox Point. This is our most recent project that we completed in late 2019. This is a new construction of 38 units, again, affordable at 60% of the area median income. We incorporated 4 permanent supportive housing units in this one. And again, this was all possible through local partnerships. The Austin HRA helped us acquire the land, the city provided TIF, and the Fort Bell Foundation provided some funding to ensure that the land could be acquired and infrastructure could be extended. Again, key elements to making this happen. And I didn't put a ton of pictures, but I just want to emphasize that this is really high quality housing. The funding mechanisms that we use require that. Not only does Three Rivers want to do that, but our investor partners, our Minnesota Housing Finance Agency funders, ensure that we're using high quality materials, we're complying with green building criteria, and so these projects really are truly beautiful. So here's a quick notes before I move forward into some of the things that I think we may be able to look at for Goodhue County or Red Wing. Is energy and weather and assistance and weatherization are 2 programs that really go hand in hand with a lot of folks that are looking to ensure that they can continue to afford their housing. Both of these, both energy assistance and weatherization, can be used for homeowners as well as renters. So in a brief nutshell, energy assistance helps people with their energy bills, and weatherization helps them conserve energy by weatherizing or basically buttoning up the envelope of the place where they live. I mentioned food support, huge benefit to a lot of folks, ensuring that we help them enroll in food support to help stretch limited resources they have. Older adult services, ensuring that folks, elders who want to stay in their homes and stay living independently, have that support with us supporting the caregivers, Meals on Meals. And a couple other points here. One, Three Rivers is a safe place to contact. And so we have a lot of folks that contact us that may be in situations that they're afraid of being involved in an organization that works with government funding, or afraid of providing information, and rightfully so, that they feel to put their family at risk for certain reasons. And so we don't collect information that we don't absolutely need to serve someone, and it's absolutely confidential. And so we are required to report anything about a household that they don't want reported or don't allow us to report to other entities. And so I want to throw that out there, and we try to make sure that folks know that as well. And if there's something that folks don't know we can provide and they wanted to find that out, reach out to us. We have trained folks that answer the phone, not just an automated system. We have human beings that will answer the phone and talk to someone about what they're looking for and find out how we may be able to help. So this is my last slide. Just kind of brainstorm some ideas of local opportunities. We did housing development Red Wing a long time ago, so 16 years ago we created Eagle Ridge across from the hospital there. We'd love to do another one. I've been in conversations on and off throughout the years with the HRA and other folks trying to think this through, and so definitely a thing that we're very interested in, and including supportive housing in those units, or in these developments. And just to put a little note, the other properties that I mentioned that have 4 and 5 permanent supportive housing units, now we're up to like 8 and 9. So we just proposed a project for Lake City that we hope gets funded. That's 32 units of affordable housing that will include 8 units of permanent supportive housing. We'll find out in January if that goes, and Three Rivers will be the one providing comprehensive services on site there. Rehousing eviction prevention, we're limited usually by the funds that we receive, but I put a couple notes in here, like are there other resources we could leverage, other partners that we haven't thought of for how we could expand this service. We currently do provide this in Red Wing, but not a lot. And so are there other ways that we could provide more of this assistance? Achieve Homeownership is essentially a quote unlimited resource. And so we have a lot of outreach workers that help us. We have several advisors. And so if you haven't heard a lot about this project, we would love to increase our outreach, maybe create some new local partners there with some realtors or lenders that can help spread the word. We have Zoom classes. Our home stretch is all Zoom right now, so very easy to attend, and it's free. So we would love to figure out how to further expand our services there. And then I would just add that these are, again, just kind of a quick brainstorm, but we're open to other opportunities, other ideas, and we really would love to hear what you think. Here's my contact information, but if you do want to reach me and you don't have this memorized, you won't jot this down, if you call Three Rivers, they will definitely be able to help you get connected with me. And now we have time for questions.
That's a lot of information. You know your stuff, Leah. Wow, we're processing. That was a lot of good stuff. Thank you. Does anyone, and the reason for folks who couldn't come last time, one of the main reasons we asked Leah to come tonight is because a lot of the things that people said that they wanted, to have here in Red Wing, Three Rivers does a lot of it. Some of the things that, and as we were talking, Leah, we were just sort of, the HRA came and the county came, and then I think in talking with you, it was like, oh, there's a lot here. So does anyone have any questions for Leah in terms of either the services they provide or some of those housing projects, which are what the group really talked about?
You might have covered it, and I might have missed it, but I think you said it was the Achieve Home Ownership program, where you there was a bullet in there saying that there was education for realtors and lenders for the gap in homeowners, or who. I don't know. I guess my question is that all over the region, or is it in specific areas? And if you have a list of local realtors and lenders from our area, like Goodhue County, that people could reach out to if they're struggling to find that opportunity.
Yeah, great question. So it is all over the region. We have certain pockets that contact us more often and ask for classes. And so some of those places are like Faribault, like Rochester. We did connection with Winona. There was one year where they really wanted us out there a lot more. And so we definitely can connect with any realtor or lender in any community. I know for sure in Red Wing, we just have had a couple contacts there, but there hasn't been a lot. And so probably also on our end, we could amp up the outreach there. But yeah, definitely I would say there's plenty of room to increase our contacts in that area.
I think that would be awesome. Just from my thought process, the more people you have trying to buy a home, the more opportunities there are to open up more rental spaces. So that's my thoughts.
And Leah, that home stretch, those free home stretch Zoom classes, are those to become a home buyer? Is that what some of those
Yes.
are about? Okay. So could people now in Red Wing take those?
Yes, so they're all on our website, and I can send that actually the link just to that to you if you want to share that. But yeah, folks just go on our website. There's enough phone numbers there they can call or they can email, whichever they prefer, and then we take it from there. Then we get them registered for Zoom classes. We have them in kind of a combination now of either 2 weekdays, in 4 hours a piece. It's an 8-hour class, but you get a certificate, and it's a class that's often required by certain lenders. But anyways, it's spread. It's either 2 4-hour classes or it's one Saturday. So we have options like that, and we can also shift dates around. So if there are people in different areas saying, no, these aren't working for me, we're very flexible that way.
My wife and I are actually signed up for some of those Zoom classes, so you might be doing this with me at home pretty soon here.
Great.
But just to kind of give Sam a bit more information, you know, we live in Red Wing, so we're trying to participate in this program because we're far more interested in buying a home than renting one. And
I get that.
from what we were looking at, like as she was saying, this is a requirement for a lot of the lenders just because they are, from the lender's perspective, doing outreach, you know, so they just kind of want to feel more comfortable with their investment if they can have some type of proof that you're doing legwork on your end too, you know. So it builds confidence for the lender, and it just gives you resources because we're clearly lacking knowledge, you know. Otherwise, we'd solved the problem already.
All right.
But you know, it is in the area, and if I recall correctly, like there's just certain requirements that you have to go through, you know, as far as what you're willing to do. And I think the loan that we were discussing is a FHA loan, and there's a certain credit requirement. So and they give you this information prior, and they can give you ways to help you achieve those goals. So it's a thing, and the more I participate in the program, the more I'll be able to share.
Right. No, that's great, thank you. That's kind of what I was curious about, because I know there's a lot of people struggling just simply finding where to go next and what to do next in order to, you know, make those achievements and buying a home, so.
That's where I was. My wife did a bit of research. Again, Three Rivers, they do a lot of stuff, and I didn't know how much you guys did, but I hear your name everywhere. Everyone always says, if you need help, go to Three Rivers. And I'm like, who are they and what are they about? You know? So we referred you guys by the county, I want to say, because they have your guys' cards and flyers over there. So my wife went to your website and found these programs and signed up.
Yeah, but I don't think we do a good job of promoting clearly what Three Rivers does. Because I was thinking of, well, Janet and also Alexis, you were saying about age last time, about being a young person. So with some of these classes then, right, Alexis, you're just talking about being a younger person, and some people don't want to rent unless you have renter's experience, right? And how do you get experience unless you rent? So do you find that these help younger people too, or are there specific classes for that?
So we right now, we don't do rental classes, although they're very needed. We just have the homeownership classes. But we do like financial literacy, and so what we've done in the past is we've orchestrated, I'm thinking for example, I'll just use Faribault again. The Faribault HRA had a bunch of folks that were renters that were really interested in financial literacy. Like we do free credit pulls, they're soft credit pulls, they don't show up in your credit, and really helps kind of guide people through. Here are some things you can do to help improve your financial situation, whether it's just to be stabilized as you're becoming a renter or are a renter, or if you're looking longer term, how to set yourself up for homeownership over the long term. So let's say you're talking years from now, but how do I kind of get on pace to make sure that that doesn't become a problem when I do want to become a home buyer. We do also, and Smurls Legal Aid has done this, and I can connect with them, but they have also done landlord tenant education. And so they've provided both on the landlord end, like what should be expected of the landlord, but then also some tenant education as well, what to expect as a tenant.
My only question would be, do you offer those classes just in English or in Spanish?
We can offer them in Spanish and Somali right now. Other languages, we do have an interpreter, but those two languages we can provide them directly. And right now, how we've sort of been doing it is, as people are registering for classes, we kind of figure out, like with the folks that are registering, what language we're going to be teaching them. But we've also done specific classes for a group of people who say, you know what, we want Karen or Kareni, and there's 8 of us who want to go to this class, and we can arrange that. So we're very flexible that way as well.
Nice, thank you.
Yeah. I'm excited to find out right here. See, you had something. Did you raise your hand? Other questions? You mentioned some of the project-based this group talked about whether it's, affordable housing or supportive housing and new projects. And can you talk a little bit, Leah, to us about, we also talked about advocacy and how a community might advocate, and sometimes a project will come up and it won't happen for lots of different reasons. You have a lot of experience in that. Can you talk a little bit about what makes it work in a community and what helps it go and what can really not make it happen?
Yeah, great, thank you. Yeah, I actually forgot to talk about that. So I'll just call it out. NIMBY is what we call it a lot in my line of work, not my backyard. It happens quite frequently, and I would say almost every project I've worked on has some element of that. And a lot of it is based in fear, based in not understanding, based in the fear of the other or the someone else. And for us, what really helps a lot is when we're working with a community that has really a group of community members who understand that this housing is for people who live in the community, who are your neighbors, your cousins, your friends, your family members. And they're folks that work on Main Streets. They're working at the gas station, at Walmart. They're working 2 or 3 jobs at the gas station. And they're just trying to make ends meet. And a lot of people that we serve in affordable housing are in bad situations because they can't afford a decent place. And so they have kids who either doubled up, a lot of folks that we end up housing in our lovely complexes, or they're in terrible rentals that they shouldn't be, but they just don't have a choice. And so what really helps us a lot is we have local people that can help tell these stories. Who are the people that we are needing to serve? And when I say $36,000 a year for one person, is that really low income? Is that just modest? And I think boiling that down to who we're talking about helps a lot. So I think right there, having the grassroots, or community education amongst each other, not being afraid to, let people ask the questions and really boil down who we're serving. The second piece, and one of the most important pieces, is knowing that the decision makers, which is often the community, the city council or the HRAs, that they understand these projects, they're comfortable with us as a developer, they know we're going to deliver a high quality project, and we're going to serve the people we said we're going to serve, but then also are ready to stand up, because you can never educate everybody to the point of them saying, yes, I love affordable housing. You're always going to have a fraction of the community that will not accept these projects. And so a lot of times it's really building these allies on our end and knowing that we have this partnership with the decision makers that say, we know what you're doing and we're going to do our best to help educate our constituents along in partnership with us. But in the end, there's going to be people who say no, and we're going to say we're doing this because it's the right thing and it's what the community needs. And so for sure, I think getting ahead of it, of education and a lot of the discussions I think that you probably have and your recommendations help really sort of start paving the way to creating more opportunities.
Any questions about that for Leah?
Not really a question, just more of a comment. We see that maybe that not in my backyard, and I'd like to say, from what I've seen, Three Rivers does an amazing job of pushing back against that without calling anyone out in a way to make them feel bad. You just kind of do the project anyway, and then it's successful, and then everyone can pretend they always supported it. And you see that in your transportation too, just with busing, because a lot of people don't know this, but there's actually pushback against expanding public transportation and busing in places, because not in my backyard. Some people have a misconception about the type of people who ride the bus, or what it would mean to have a walkable community, but Three Rivers just put a bus there anyway, and people caught it anyway, and it grew in popularity, and now people can be like, oh yeah, our town has a bus system, you guys have no excuses to go places, when they were the people who said, we don't need a bus system, buy a car, So Three Rivers does great on that.
Well, thank you for that. And And it's interesting, we said that, I was just thinking about a project I worked on not too long ago where we had some folks that were just railing against it, really didn't want it. We were in partnership with the city, we made it happen, we built it. And I got a phone call a year later from someone who was totally opposed to the project that said, "What are you doing? You built this place and no one lives there?" I'm like, "It's fully occupied. It's just, there's no riots in the street," like, or whatever they thought was going to happen. We just didn't disrupt your neighborhood. It's just there, so.
Do you have any, are there things or pitfalls that we should, you know, if the community is looking to have, as this group has said, more supportive housing, more affordable housing, are there any pitfalls that you've seen in other communities, or maybe it's this one, you know, that have stumbled a bit that we should kind of keep our eye out for or try to get ahead of a little bit?
Yeah, good question. So I would say partner with a developer early on, or several developers early on. Get a sense of, as you're kind of thinking through what you want to see, partner with a couple or a few and figure out, you know, what is the ideal vision, and then what is fundable. So there's always going to be a little bit of a mishmash between figuring out what you really want and what someone can get funded. So I think early on, talking through all of that, talking through the elements of these projects, talking about how they work so that everybody has a really good understanding of the timelines, because some of these are extensive. Like, from the moment you come up with the idea, you're not occupying that thing for 3 years. So I think getting that going as soon as you can is really helpful, because it helps buffer disappointments, and it helps really craft, I think, a quality project, really.
I just have one because it was raised a couple meetings ago about mobile home parks, and I wonder if does Three Rivers do anything in terms of, like, I've been looking a little bit at sort of loan programs that often do rehab for homes, but would also do that for mobile homes, or working with the manager of the mobile home park. Do you have any, does Three Rivers do anything like that, or?
The closest we do is weatherization, and it's a little tricky to weatherize mobile homes, but we've done it, and we've done some outreach in different mobile home parks to weatherize mobile homes. Other than that, really our homeownership, we can educate on that. What gets a little tricky is a lot of the products that we work with as mortgages, they have to be affixed. So the mobile home has to be affixed to, you know, a basement or a slab, and so it's not really mobile anymore. We do partner with other entities that do this. I'm going to mess up their name now that I've said that. There's a cooperative, the Northland Cooperative, they actually have been able to see all that they serve rural areas. They actually do mobile home park conversions to co-ops, and so they've done a lot of that, and then they also bring in some rehab for those programs.
Thank you. Okay. Leah, thank you so much. You guys do a ton. So I think hopefully more in Red Wing, and we can get some more things going here. So yeah, and I know you do a lot here already. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Okay.
I hope I get to talk to you again soon.
Yes,
Have a great night,
we'll
everyone.
connect. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
And the city meetings so that.
We need to spend a birthday.
Right.
I don't want to do anything in the meeting for the weekend.
Was that helpful for people?
That was helpful.
I didn't know all that stuff that they did, so. Just really good to learn.
So they don't do the actual setting up the rent, they just do the projects? Or do they do both?
They also, it's my understanding, like with that supportive housing, they actually are the case manager in some situations, whether they hire that person, or let's say they have 32 units and 8 of them are supportive, so whether that's people getting out of eviction or, I mean, you know, transitioning from incarceration, they have a case manager, and oftentimes it will be Three Rivers that is the case management also. And I do think I have a man. Steve, you should have asked her when she was here. I don't know.
Literally just popped in my head.
Yeah, I don't think that they're just like the builder and the developer. I think that they continue following it through. So yes, but they do a ton, and I just, I know the HRA, and I think there is a lot of energy around collaborating more and bringing, because you heard the HRA, I'm thinking about who was here at the last one, the HRA and the county and the city collaborating, but a lot of those projects we're thinking about, Three Rivers does. So could we collaborate with Three Rivers and just bring that knowledge and all of their resources and just make it bigger, maybe here in Reading. So anyway, it was interesting. And really, the group, who was here last time? Raise your hand. Alexis was here, yes. Janet? Okay, okay. So what we did last time, way back in September, and I sent out those notes, we really learned a lot from the HRA, we learned a lot from the county, and then we came back in November, just this last time, and listened to the team more. So it was a time, Janet, you guys were here, and sort of we had things up on the wall. It was basically, I sent you those notes too, but it was basically, what are your life experiences in these 8 topics that were brought up earlier? And what are some of your questions or concerns? What are some of your ideas? And what are your life experiences about it? Or you or your friends or family, people you know. And so we went around the room and reported out on that. And there are 8 different topics. And I think you probably saw that. So if you go to this document, we'll highlight the top. It says this is just a draft of these ideas. And we'll work on these as a group on Wednesday. These are just starting points for some recommendations in housing to the council. But you see those golden, those are the 8 areas that the group sort of was talking about. And so in order to put those kind of in some kind of package, those are the next 3 pages that you'll see, and those are up onto the walls. It has gone fast, but I wanted to, and we can talk about this can be changed, it can be added, subtracted, all of that. We talked last time about Allie Neamy, that consultant from North Star Policy Consulting, and she has been coming over the last few months to Red Wing, and she first did a study on homelessness and housing instability, and so that was the data, and she came and talked to this group. That was the other person I was trying to think of. So that was some information. Now she's been over the last 3 months meeting with a larger community group, and everyone here was invited to those, and then working in smaller work groups. And that was on homelessness prevention, affordable and supportive housing, and crisis housing, so like emergency shelter, sort of, what happens in crisis. And so she's going to have a whole report that she comes to the council in January. And that's really a report from all these community members who've been weighing in on those topics. This group has also been has been going through housing. And what we're thinking is that the recommendations that come from this group can also be sort of put into that report, but really highlighted like in a box. These are from the advisory team, so that it's very clear that those are separate. And your recommendations will also go separately to the city council, like they have in the past. But because there will be a housing study and report going to the council, it seemed like we didn't want to miss all the good work that you have done too on this, because there were some things that this group brought up that were right in line with what the group the community, the other community groups, and then there were some things that were raised up that didn't come up. Undocumented residence was one of them. Mobile home parks was another. Those are 2 of the main things that came up in this group that were not raised at all. So it's really important for the council and others to hear about those. And this group has gone into more detail on some things, and so, one thing this group, when you talk about detail, this group asked about, hey, how can we use the median income for Goodhue County, which is $66,800, rather than the income for Redmond, which is a lot lower, $54,000. That depends on how much the rents are. So I'm gonna stop talking, but I wanted to see if people felt like just to take a couple minutes. And it might feel weird because a lot of people who were here last time weren't here, so it's you can't really look at what you talked about necessarily, except for Janet Alexis. I'm thinking that we could go through this and you could look at it, make some notes, and we want to know what is missing here that should be here, what are things that you think should not be here, what is confusing to you, if it's confusing to you, it's confusing to somebody else. And what do you feel got missed? The one thing I want to say is that these 8 things that were in, the 8 topics, all 8 topics are in here. It's just that some things, like educating about the Fair Housing Act, that was under education, it was also under discrimination, so it got put under education. You know what I mean? So instead of keeping with 8 topics, it kind of became 4, and they all rolled together. So I think unless anybody has any initial questions, we can answer those. Otherwise, so does anyone have any questions on just why we're even here, why we're at where we're at here? Okay. And so we can take a couple minutes, and even if you weren't at, any of the housing meetings or whatever, your voice is still really important. So whatever you're thinking, if it's not on here, put it down. And I would say if you could take, there's some sticky notes next to you, read it here. It's a little easier maybe to read here. Put some sticky notes and then put it on the walls so that we can make sure that we have down what this team wants and what they don't. And then I would email a next draft to you. Does that make sense to everybody? Yeah? Okay. The council will be meeting at their workshop and specifically talking about housing at the end of January. So they will be taking into consideration all of your recommendations, all of the other recommendations, and we're making some good steps in housing next year. So, yeah, simple.
I do have some thoughts because you brought up mobile home parks, and you're right, I don't hear about that a lot. And even though I live in one, I live in Grandview Mobile Home, and we moved there with the intention of buying the unit. It was one of the newer ones they had available. A lot of the park is dilapidated, but this was actually a new unit, and I wasn't approved for the loan because it's a mobile home, like she was saying. The loans your loan options are very different. I banked with Wells Fargo since I got my first bank account. They didn't have any loan options for me, So I'm like, all right, my bank right off the bat, that's a no. So they said, well, you could go through our private lender. I didn't meet their private lender standards. My wife did, but I didn't qualify to be her co-signer. So now we're renting the home we're trying to buy. And I know how, from my understanding, that massive park, where those 100 units or so are all sitting on, that's all private land owned by, I forget the guy's last name, but, he's my landlord, we make our checks out to. And they're, I don't know, what type of, there's housing code. Homes should be built like this to whatever standards, and if not, you kind of have to update them, renovate them. I don't think there's any type of, from my understanding now, way to enforce any of that, on this private land, this guy owns a patch of land, he has this trailer here, he rents the lot, he owns his unit, it's completely dilapidated, If the park is okay with that being on their land, as long as he's paying, their $400 or $500 lot fee, their rent, then what do we do with that? Because the park, say the guy moves or whatever, they'll just repo the unit, and then now they're going to rent that out to somebody, you know? And because it is a trailer park, it's never going to have to like go through a Section 8 inspection or anything like that would make another home be brought up to a more livable standard. You know, like what can we do with this when everything is so private? The land itself is owned by someone else. And then the home itself that's on the land is owned by potentially someone else, you know, so that's two separate owners right there. How are we going to hold these guys accountable? I don't know how we can. Like, as a renter, I actually have more rights and protections than my neighbor who owns their mobile home, because I can get rent out. You know, legally I'm a renter. I'm the same as anyone renting an apartment or home. You know, but had I bought that unit, my options become much more limited. You know, say I did want to renovate my trailer, I might not qualify for a regular housing loan. You know, I might have to get a private loan, and now it's different, the amounts and then your interest rates, you know. So, and those people do tend to be disadvantaged already, you know. So yeah, that is a big concern. Red Wing has two pretty big mobile home parks here, you know, between Pepin Woods and Grandview, and the county in general, you know, there's mobile home parks all over the place. My buddy, he lives out in Hay Creek, and my friend's mobile, you know, on their land. They got the big brick house. He's in the trailer. Their roof was leaking for quite a while. And if you looked at those shingles, you'd be like, wow, I've never seen something so warped in my life. And what can you do? There's nothing you can do. Like, you can't make them fix that stuff. They'll just tell you they're going to get to it. And a year and a half later, they finally did. You know, so it's not even just your mobile home like in a park, like just being on someone else's property, period, makes you vulnerable. And I don't, off the top of my head, I'm not sure of a way we can alleviate that, just because that's all private, you know?
Yeah, I've done a little bit of research, but there's more that needs to be done, because a lot of people go, I don't know, but there are some rehab programs, but we would definitely, right now, it's not really in Red Wing at all. And Janet, you brought this up too, with mobile home parks. Are both the parks, some own and some rent? Is that your understanding?
Yes.
Both of them? Yeah, okay. Because we talked about how the rental license program, if you own it, we can't come in there and inspect it, even with this new program. But you know, even if someone rents it, I don't think that is on the radar we need to see about that. Okay. Yeah, upkeep. Jan, was there anything else you wanted to say about that? I don't know.
I just mentioned about the fee, the renting fee, that if somebody is in charge of those things, or they, or just the owner just writes the rent.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And I think you mentioned too about some of the roads and some of the property around it. You know, those parks, it's not a city park. We would probably need to just do some research and find out, because you're right, there are a lot of families who live in both of those. Okay.
Why don't they be exempt from the rental?
Yeah, as I'm saying that out loud, I can't remember, and I might be wrong about that. Except that I
don't think rental is rental. It makes difference if it's a trailer house or a private house or an apartment building.
I don't think, like, trailer houses aren't inspected, they're not part of the, I don't think you get a certificate of occupancy, and that's kind of the department it falls under. Isn't it? I think there's a different code, because they're certified when they leave the factory, and then after that, I don't think they're ever.
Yeah, I don't think there's any code enforcement.
I mean, it's just like a vehicle, there's no vehicle thing, once you buy one, it's kind of it's seen as a 25 or 30 or whatever many years, but, so I don't, Yeah, I think that's,
But I would think if I own one and I don't live there, and I'm renting it out to you, that should fall under the city's new rental.
I will check that out.
Ordinance.
There's a whole booklet that the state attorney general's office puts out specifically in mobile homes, and I have been needing to get through it. I will check that out really right away because we need, I seem to recall there's a reason, but I might just be not right on that, so I will check on that because
If it is exempt, it just seems wrong to me.
I know personally in my park, there's a lot of confusion regarding like even like your lot fees. Like some people call it lot rent, others just call it a fee. Are you paying rent each month? Like I would say obviously yes, you are renting that space that your unit occupies. Your landlord might disagree, with your terminology, and if it's not rent, do you qualify for that rent help? Say you fell behind on your lot fees throughout this coronavirus pandemic. There's Minnesota rent help. Will you call them and say, hey, I'd like to apply for rent help? They're going to say, well, do you own your home? Yes. Well, do your lot fees count then? If you're a homeowner, how are you a renter and a homeowner simultaneously? There's just confusion. So. But I know, just as a renter, because I don't own, and I'm not in contract to own, I'm blanket, I have renter coverage, But I say the guy next to me who owns his, if he falls behind on his lot fees, I'm not sure he could get rent help because he's a homeowner. I don't know if that's a separate category or not. And a lot of people don't know.
Yeah, we need to figure that out. Good. So, and you'll see, on the last page when we talked about mobile home parks, there's not a lot of detail there because the main thing was, A, research ways that the city could help improve the health and safety of mobile home parks inside and out in the neighborhood structures around them. B was to ensure that the contracts, licenses, and agreements are available in different languages, because that came up too. And then, again, just to kind of reach out to mobile home residents to really learn about all, like you're telling us right now, Marvin, so that people even know what the real issues are. And so this has been really helpful,
Because I know a lot of park owners, they'll say, hey, their fallback is you could always move your unit. And first off, if you're, that's what they'll say, well, you can't pay your lot fees or whatever. Well, you own your place, well, that's fine. Get it off my land then. Go ahead and bring it somewhere else. And that can be incredibly expensive. First off, just getting the equipment necessary to move your home. Secondly, you need a place to put it. And thirdly, if your home is in poor condition because it's sat for so long, you will destroy your home the second you move it. You uproot it, it will collapse. So they can it's leverage, I'll say. It's leverage, because they can always pull yeah man, you don't like it, it's mobile. Put that sucker on wheels and wheel it off my land, And you say, I don't have the $20,000 to do that. And I don't have a place to put it on. And it might fall apart on the highway. So.
Okay, good. Very good. Okay, other things? Steve, are you raising your hand or you're not? Okay, Steve.
I'm just thinking.
Who else has something?
one thing, I wasn't here, and I apologize for that, I kind of didn't come along, but with some of the, I've seen a few specials lately out of Seattle and some other areas where they've done tiny home villages, both for homeless and permanent residents. And it's basically, it's like a mobile home park, kind of, except they're a little bit more permanent, more architectural. And I don't know if that's zoning, but even within our current mobile home parks, if lots could begin to be converted, so they are a little bit more, you don't have these buildings that are going to kind of collapse. They're built, whether they were built out of shipping containers and things they're pretty efficient and they're kind of cool. I mean, I'd love to do one. So this is a great concept.
Yeah, no, that could definitely be under there. And I think, and that has been brought up before, why we want so we can add that. You bring up that point at the bottom of the second page or under number 1, Corey, where you're saying about the zoning, provide more flexibility in city zoning. Anyway, that letter C, we wouldn't word it like that. I talked today to a number of people in the community development department. The idea is that you just create a zone in your city and be these big zones for like affordable housing or supportive housing, because that, it doesn't really work. You kind of want to scatter, just like everything else, scatter it throughout your community, but there are ways of working on this, and we need to do a little more research into what kind of zoning things need to happen so that it might be a little more, there were some different things. It was a little more complicated, so I'm not going to be able to describe it very well, but even some of the language in our zoning under these permitted uses, it says halfway house. Well, that language seems so outdated, and how does someone think of a halfway house, instead of supportive housing for people? We just want to be real clear about what it is. And the idea sometimes is, if you're going to do a conditional use permit for this, some people think, that's a big red flag, we shouldn't do that. When really, it is a totally legitimate purpose for that. Just because it's conditional does not mean, because if you didn't want to do it, like, there can't be a porn shop next to a school. Okay, give an example. That's not listed, but that's not even on the list. There's a list of permitted uses and then conditional use permits. And just because it's a conditional use permit does not mean, it's still on the list of things that are absolutely permittable in that spot. So it's also the way that we might educate and talk to people about sometimes people just have a big red flag. I think Leah's right. There's always going to be people who are against it. And how do we advocate as a community for those? But I guess what I'm saying is, letter C and letter D, these are more complicated, and we don't have answers yet in terms of zoning, but I will get more information to you on, are there things that could be done to have more flexibility in city zoning?
And in the past, I know we've had issues like on different topics with the city before, and if they brought in like case studies from different places, I think 100% of them have been approved when they actually showed like cool, examples, and we're like, oh, yeah, that's awesome, that's what we want. Where you just talk about it, it's a little bit frightening or intimidating, but that's why I said this. I know I've seen a great story in one in Seattle, I think, where that was just a small little park, basically, but like homeless each get a 8-foot by 10-foot little mini house, and there's like a bathroom, separate buildings, but it's still, they're kind of like camping almost, but it's like you've got a locked space that's nice and safe, and but even housing can be something, some creative ideas that way.
Sam, you've been writing a lot, so.
Well,
That's good.
I've got some garbage in my hand too, so.
What do you got for us?
Okay, well, I don't know. I have a lot on my mind. I'm kind of confusing myself as I look through this. But one of the things I did want to mention for, where'd it go? Okay, increase safety in the mobile home park. Obviously, this is not a final draft, but I would maybe. I think that sometimes mobile home parks sometimes have like a bad stigma. From my point of view, I've seen a bad. I don't think so, but I've experienced other people probably thinking mobile home parks aren't great or whatever. And I don't know for a reason, but Just right next to where it's the number 3 where it says increase safety in mobile home parks, I think removing the word safety and or giving a little bit more detail to the word safety, because I think, automatically just reading that, some people might think like, oh, why is it violent in a mobile home park?
Why is it unsafe?
Yeah, like why, maybe either removing that, replacing it with a different word.
So that was not written properly. It meant more like lead.
Yeah, no, and I know that after reading the rest of these bullets, because I don't think I was here for the meeting that this was brought up, but just, right off the bat before I read A, B, and C, automatically I was like, what type, where is it unsafe? But now that we're talking about like actual units and not.
But still, that's a really good point to make sure that that's more clear.
Yeah.
Because even if
because a lot of times people think safety is like.
Even here, it says safety, shouldn't say that. Increase safety in mobile home parks. It makes it sound like, like
it's dangerous.
Yeah.
Increase structural safety.
Yeah, so like whether you add couple words to the sentence or replace it with a different word, I don't know. That was just my immediate thought when I read it. I was like, what?
No, that's really good.
But then I read the rest of it and I understood, but maybe some people would probably right away assume the same thing I thought when I read it.
For sure. That's really good, Other things?
I was gone at the last meeting, so it might have been discussed already. But in terms of like discrimination and like criminal background, having a criminal background, what's legal and what's not legal for landlords, realtors, and lenders when considering somebody's criminal background? Like if it's gonna defer them away or.
Good question, because probably for one of our experts, but which is not me. I do know that the city provides, I think it's like a landlord can pay $10 to get a criminal background check on any. If you're someone who wants a criminal background check, you can pay our public safety department. They will do a background check for $10 and tell you. And then if you're a private landlord, you can it's my understanding, you can decide whatever you want.
Yeah.
So that's why Maddie Schwartz, who is here from the county, one of the things that she was just hired as a housing resource specialist from the county, and what she is sort of starting to kind of focus on is how to get more landlords open to the idea of renting to people who are on what used to be called Section 8 is now housing choice, and getting to rent to people who have criminal backgrounds. But it's my understanding that unless you are in a program, you as a private landlord, you don't have to take somebody, which is why it's super hard.
Yeah.
For
Well,
people.
so first off, and they're not required to actually pay that. A lot of landlords will charge whoever's filling out an application, to maybe possibly move into their, the landlord's home. They charge a criminal background check fee that they're charged from the city. They'll tell the applicant.
Application fee.
And there's an application fee for the background check. I think it would be nice to have that changed. Like if they want to know that information, they should have to pay for it. I get why they do it. Sometimes, obviously I get why they do it, but I think that if that's something that they find is a necessity, not just simply because you want to help these people out and you think they're good people, but they have a felony on their background from 15, 20 years ago, and they're still not, I just think that that's something that they should be willing to pay. especially if it's a nonviolent offense that they're gonna be maybe turning somebody away from because not how.
I don't know how long that stays. Does anyone know? I don't know how long certain, I think it depends on felony or misdemeanor. You know, certain
Felonies, I
things
think,
stay on
Felonies are for
longer.
life.
I think
Felonies are for life.
Misdemeanors can drop off, but if you
A
are
felony is for
if you
life.
are 16, you rob a store, they charge you as an adult, you are a felon until the day you die.
there's a process so you can
get it expunged.
get it expunged, but
It's not easy.
and it's a
And it's
huge
costly.
process. Yeah, yeah.
I can speak on that actually. Growing up, Marvin Sr., my dad made poor choices, and he became a felon. He married my mom, had kids, got his life together, expunged his record. They became foster parents and all that. Did great work here. Mom left dad. Dad started drinking. Dad got a felony DWI. Dad can't find a place to live anymore. And that's that, you know. He had his previous record expunged, but now he would have to begin that process again at about 60 years old with no income, you know, and that's the cards you're dealt, you know, so it's an uphill battle, but that is the situation, unfortunately, you know, and I know that landlords can discriminate because they do require a background check, and that is at their discretion, you know. At my part, I watched the police come to the neighbor's house, and even though they owned their home, now I know it's not rent, it's a lease agreement. Because they had to sign their lot lease agreement, the second the police came and someone received the charge, they got kicked out, even though they owned their home. You know, it didn't matter. And then the option became, all right, well, you want to keep your home, move it, or else after a certain amount of time, park takes it. You know, so in other situations, yeah, my dad, he got out of prison after he got out from serving his DWI, and couldn't find a place out of the halfway home. You know, and I told him, you can't live with me, you're a felon. Like, you couldn't come and stay with me. Sorry, Dad. You know, I'd get kicked out.
It's tough. It is really tough.
Actually, I have another question. You said it was $10 for that background check for landlords to pay. I want to say on multiple occasions, I've seen actually landlords making an application fee even higher than that $10. Has that
No,
dropped?
it's
I've always,
Yeah, yeah.
least I've ever paid was $25.
I would say I've seen at least $20, $25, $30. How can a landlord charge that much if they're only legal to pay $10?
So there's a financial check and a criminal check. So usually landlords will do the whole thing. So there's charges for each of those things. So
Okay.
they'll get from the credit bureaus, they'll get from like from the police department, and then there's one other.
I mean, I hate raising costs on things, but would it make it easier for people if that price went up and then they'd have to force applicants to pay more and then they're not gonna have applicants filling out applications? So then maybe they would, you know, stir away from the idea of even getting the background
They
check.
just raise the rent to cover the costs.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah,
sure.
I suppose, I'm just brainstorming out loud
Yep.
right now.
Yeah.
What I've heard people say is that, say you have a unit that's been vacant a long time, but you get a lot of applications. If you get 10 applications, you know, and you're charging a $50 application fee, you're generating revenue just from applications now. Like, say your background check is just $10, say those other fees are marginal, well, you've covered that and now you're profiting, you know, so there's that incentive too, you know, which, and again, you know, you can't be like, hey man, don't go out there and earn a buck, but when it comes to housing, it sucks feeling something like predatory like that. But, you know, barring capping it at something, it's gonna be like that, you know. As a landlord, I own this house, it has a lot of interest. You post a listing on Facebook, you get 1 million comments. Say just if even 30 of those people actually apply and they each pay $50 for a fee, you're getting paid before anyone even lives there.
Yeah, and I think that's why Leah was saying, you know, for a lot of these, it is super hard for felons or anyone with criminal background who's incarcerated to get into housing. So some of those projects are specific units that help people kind of get transition, into so that, but we don't really have those in Redmond right now. We have some that are, County Bottom has, I think, 8 units. I don't know if that's specific for incarceration. I think it's for a lot of
Question.
things, but yeah.
What about people that have like unlawful detainers?
Have what?
Unlawful detainers, UDs? Or whatever?
Oh.
What about
eviction?
people? Yeah.
Oh, yes.
What about like to help people like that? Do they have anything
They
like
have something
that?
that helps them, a program that helps people expunge their evictions. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about because I know somebody who does, and it's like really hard to find a place for them, and so
Yes.
they have that on the record for like 10 years.
Right. And so Three Rivers does have a program.
Mm-hmm.
Again, I don't think it's well publicized or that people know about it in Redmond, so this is something that would need to change.
Mhm.
But Three Rivers would be someone to contact for sure. I think that they do go through and they work with like that legal aid, some of the legal, to get that expunged in a lot of cases. So
Okay. Yeah, I was
don't
just
think it's
wondering.
super easy. I
Right.
remember saying that it takes some time or I don't know if it's Leah, but someone else. But I do think for a lot of people, it's totally worth it.
Right.
It's like-
I mean, because some people, they make bad decisions or whatever, but then they fix up their life, like, and then it's on the record for 10 years, whatever, and then they have a hard time finding anything.
Right.
Nobody,
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just wondering about that.
Mhm. Yeah, these are things we definitely need to get more information to people here in Redmond about. Rachel, you've been pretty quiet. Is there things that you,
Yeah, I was wondering, and this wouldn't really help people that had, like newer felonies, but is there any way we could put like a limit on how far back they could check the background? Like, or a standard or something, is the last 5 years versus the last 10 or 15?
maybe someone else knows. It's my understanding that there is, and it's not based on the city. I think this is a state,
Okay.
maybe even federal, but I don't know that that's something that Redmond can change, which is what, I can check on that and find out the time period, but I have a feeling that is something that local government can change. It's still good to know though.
Yeah, I think that would be really easy to narrow this down and, edit it or whatever. If we knew what the city is capable of doing and what they're not, like what can they do and what can't they do as far as changing things.
Yeah. So
Because we can't make recommendations if we don't know if sometimes I have a lot of questions, I just don't know if it's even a thing, so I don't say it.
Yeah.
Like, can the city even do that, or is it like a state thing?
So the first one about seeking out and adopting supportive housing project, that is definitely something that the city can, when a developer comes and can seek out some of those things. So that is something that can happen. B is to help combat the stigma of affordable and supportive housing. So it does talk about designating city staff time to really providing more facts and information. The city can say, that's not really a law, but we could say we're going to dedicate city time to really get information out into the community. C was to produce more affordable housing units. We have a lot of market rate units going up. They just passed the last city council meeting. They voted on 249 new market rate units, apartment building through Keller Barton. That's all market. That's all. It's just what the market will bear. But it is more housing, so you hope that more housing does help. Zoning, there are some things, that's what we need to find out. Sam, to your point, zoning-wise, what can we do as a city and what can't we? This more education and resources, number 2, that was something the group talked a lot about last time. You can see there's a long list here. And that is something that the city could really work with Three Rivers, let's say, and work with the county and work with United Way and work with the HRA to really get some of this information out. That really isn't creating something new, it's more getting it to people in other languages. And so that is definitely something that we can do. Janet had a good idea on letter B was to write a regular city Q&A, kind of like the used to happen in the Republican Eagle Janet brought up, like when the chief, police chief would do, ask the chief a question or whatever, and it was there every Saturday. And so could we do something like that, a series on housing, both in English and Spanish? And it could be all different kinds of housing questions, but it would be, so that's something the city could do. In answer to the question, what can the city do in terms of mobile home parks, that is going to need some research. But it's my understanding, and I talked a little bit with the county too, that they are mobile home parks in your jurisdiction, they're in your community. So there's some things, a lot of things that the state says you have to do. But there's still an entity, just like a business, in your community. So that's going to require just a little bit more work to find out what can the city of Redwood do to make sure the places are kept up and that kind of stuff. So that, and then with the homelessness, this was a little more vague, but just get that emergency shelter out, information out more. They're doing that. That's again another information, getting information out. And 2 is to really provide an emergency shelter system, a whole system that people can count on. And so Allie and the folks there are working on putting some things together there. But that is really the question, Sam, is what can we do and what can't we? What things are, and so things like changing, the time on what you were asking about, Rachel, that I think is a federal or state thing. But if you want to throw these things out, this is something that I can get answers on and, send it out so that we have more information on what we can do. Because, we don't want to provide things in front of the council if the council says. So are there, I'm going to make a rapid list here. So are there things like anyone here, Sam, you've got a lot of things written down. Janet, I don't know if there's any, you want to go around and just kind of see if there's any other questions or comments that anybody has that you want to just make sure that we have down.
I don't have any.
You don't have any? Okay.
No, I don't have anything.
Any additional? Okay. Rachel, we might not have all of yours.
I know I interrupted, sorry.
Oh, no, you're good.
No.
I do have a comment and a question. My first one was about the education piece of it. I know that some like Minnesota lenders and brokers have programs. I know that the financial literacy and the preparation for homeownership classes were talked about, but there are some lenders that actually require those to get approved for certain programs, like down payment assistance. So maybe we could roll more of that out and make sure that's more well known. It'll actually get you better chances of being approved instead of, just mentally prepared and financially prepared for homeownership.
To take those classes you need early so that you're more prepared, is that what you mean?
Yeah,
Yes,
yep.
okay.
Because I know when I just bought a house in August and I went through the down payment assistance program and they make you take a class. So, and it's lessening their risk and whatnot. And then the not in my backyard concept. So I know what that is and I've heard about it, but I was wondering if the city, are they required to notify the people surrounding the area that they're building and what they're building?
They do. It's within a relatively small area, but it is still, I can't remember the exact distance, but they are required when something is changing. The one difference is that if someone would just come along and put up a single-family home where there was another single-family home, my understanding is you wouldn't know about it.
Right.
But if something is coming to city council, let's say, or the planning commission, because it has a conditional use permit, which isn't anything bad, it just means this is something that the planning commission and council really needs to look at, that's when they send the notice for a public hearing to other folks. And they don't vote, the council votes or the planning commission votes, but people can come and say what they think. So, yes.
So I was going to say, to get rid of some, it's going to take time and resources to, debate that with people who are not keen on the idea. So if that could be reduced at any point, it might be useful. But I also understand that if you're going to be building something, it does need to be discussed with people.
It's like if you're in a residential area and you want to build, it's extreme, but say a garbage burning
Yeah.
thing, you know, you can't do that in a residential area, you need a conditional use permit. And if it's in a commercial area and you want to put apartments there, it may not fit in there because it's built for just businesses, not housing. So there's all those stipulations restricting whether it's just for commercial use or residential, single-family residential, multi, so there's all those different categories for different parts of the city.
Right.
Joys of zoning.
I have a question on that too, actually. Because, like, if something like that were to get, you know, voted down because people within that zone spoke up and said, no, we don't want this here. Does the city provide whoever is making the request or, you know, asking for the approval of whatever they're trying to build or propose? Does the city help them maybe find a new location after voting it down? Can they offer any recommendations on where to move a certain topic or thing that they are asking for?
Yes, they
Because
are working with the developer to try and find a spot, yes.
From my understanding, something not too long ago was, you know, kind of controversial, and I actually don't even know what happened with it. But if it was voted no, if it voted yes, then cool. But if it voted no, then were there options available for them to maybe relocate and find a spot that maybe that zone would say yes, we want this, or we don't
It could
want
also have been the old convent, the old friendship house.
Oh, yeah, both of
East,
those were.
because that was a building that he already owned, like he wasn't just thinking about owning it, he bought it. So it would have been hard to go somewhere else. So that was maybe a little bit different situation, but he still, yes, someone can still work with that person, and they can come back with additional, you know, if the city council or someone voted it down, you have options to come back. You know.
with like a different proposal or different
Yeah, like
application.
less units or a different way of doing your driveway, or, you know, it could be any number of things that, to meet whatever you thought the council maybe was looking for.
Oh, okay.
You know what I mean? But,
Like the same thing, maybe just some more positive or better changes to
Yeah.
the old plan.
right,
Okay.
yep,
Cool.
yep. But yes,
And the
it-
city votes on it, it's not the, you know, the community gives their opinion,
Yep,
and
no,
then the city council's the one who
right,
either okays it or,
right. No, I understand that. I assumed that hopefully the city council takes into consideration everybody's
right,
say.
yeah.
right, yep, yep.
Yeah, because they can, if everybody wants something, the whole community does, the council can say, well, no, it doesn't
Need this
financially,
much.
whatever, they can say no, or if it's something where everybody hates it, they don't want it there, and the council can say, well, we think it's good because of this and this, and then they pass it, so.
Right.
The council has all the power, and the community just gives their own, we just give our opinions on something.
Right.
And they're having a couple, like you said, more controversial projects recently, so.
Yeah, I was just curious on how that worked, if they could come back again, or if the city worked with them, like, hey, we think it's a great idea, it's just not the right
Yeah,
space or
sometimes
timing,
they have a
or,
business too, you know, if there's a business.
so maybe they have better recommendations that would be more fitting to whatever they're proposing, whoever is proposing.
Yeah, they are supposed to work with someone to try and, you know, make something work.
Okay.
Especially if the city has property or buildings, because the city's bought up a lot of buildings over
Right.
the last several years, and they say, okay, well, we've got this building, would this work? You know,
Mhm.
kill two birds with one stone, get something on the tax payroll for the city, and help this organization out, or whatever business that wants to come in.
Okay. Rachel, do you have anything else?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, Alexis? Nothing else? Did we cover some of the things that you brought up in the last time? The other one with the homelessness, that was something where, when I looked at that, that was a federal guideline that couldn't be changed. When you remember, someone has to actually spend time in a homeless shelter,
Mhm.
which is,
Which is ridiculous, but yeah.
yeah, and so,
Mhm.
when whoever was, Karina or whoever was here said that's a federal guideline, so it's like, okay, shoot, that's something that we can't do. So that's not really a recommendation to change that.
Right.
Because we can't.
Yeah.
But could we help educate people to know why is that? How can you go about, so that someone doesn't feel totally lost? That we could do more.
Well, that also, I had asked my friend about that. She wasn't told that she only needed to spend one night.
Oh, it made it sound like more.
Yeah.
See, so if she.
So that needed to be
maybe
communicated a little bit
Yeah, okay.
more. So that's why I was like, what the heck? So I asked her about it, and yeah, that's what that was.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
but
Good.
yeah,
Yeah, but I-
that sucks that you can't do it.
Wait,
Can't
so
do anything.
what? Was this from the last meeting? Did I miss it?
Yeah,
Explain.
maybe Alexis can go through, let's go around first the table, and then if we can add.
Okay, sorry.
But yeah, it was a federal guideline,
Mhm.
we'll go through that maybe in detail after the meeting, just.
Okay, sorry, my bad.
No, I just want to get to every, so Alexis, okay, Sam, do you have other things that you want to bring up here that, even if they're just questions or?
I think I spoke on most of my questions unless something comes up again.
Okay. Steve, do you have anything?
I was just, when we were talking about how long can they go back for convictions and stuff like that, and article 2 years ago in Minneapolis, they changed their ordinance and their rental bylaws. It says provisions include a ban on rejecting rental applications for evictions more than 3 years old in most cases, felony convictions older than 7 years. Landlords could reject applicants with first-degree arson, assault, aggravated robbery convictions that are less than 10 years old. So they're looking at 7 and 10 years as a cutoff.
Okay,
That's great.
well, then we should look at that.
And that was from 2019 that they.
Okay, that was Minneapolis.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Anything else?
No.
No, thanks for that info, that's good. Corey?
I was some of the, communication and stigma pieces, and then also resources for felons. I had some really good presentations at an organization I was worked with in Minneapolis called New Way.
Okay.
And it wasn't their programs, but they brought in different speakers every week. And so I could maybe reach out to them even and just see if they have kind of a list of, because I know they have like a Felons for Felons program or some, ex-felons started this support organization. I think that, maybe I don't know what it's called. But they had some really neat stories, and these guys are just awesome speakers. Like, whoa, so having maybe some people like that do talks in the community, not even just, just getting more to like seeing them as people and like these powerful, transformative stories that can happen.
Was it called New Way? Like
New Way,
W-A-Y?
N-U-W-A-Y.
Oh, N-U, okay.
N-U hyphen. And they do a lot of like addiction and chemical dependency stuff, and they also have some like transitional housing units. Well, they're more like 30, 60, 90-day things, but they're good at knowing like resources, at least in Minneapolis and different areas. So they might have some good people to network with.
Great. Awesome. Good. Okay. That is good stuff. Okay, so I've got some stuff to look at. Summarize and discuss next steps just for a couple minutes. We'll probably get out just a little tiny bit early. So I think right now what I'll do is go back and talk to our staff about some of these things in terms of what can we change and what can't we. Like Steve just brought up something I thought we couldn't, and it turns out we might be able to. So I'll do some research into that, and the goal was, Allie is going to get done with her study at the end of this month, and really the advisory team doesn't have to have any of their recommendations in that, but there might be some high-level things, in terms of like the education and more affordable and specifically supportive housing that this group really brought up. So I think what I might do is do some research and then fine-tune this a little bit more to see if there, I don't want to push this group's recommendations too fast, just to make it into that report. So, yeah. So even if this group meets in January and then gets its recommendations, I do think it would be helpful to have this group's recommendations by the end of January, because that's when the council is meeting for their 2-day workshop, and they will be at least talking a little bit for sure about housing, because they'll have had this new information. I want to make sure that what you guys are saying gets to them at that time. So we do a little bit of research, and I think we'll work by email a little bit I want to get these answers out to you so you can kind of see what they are. So that's where we're at. It's a little bit in limbo. The council workshop is the very end of January. I think it's the 28th and 29th this year. It's a Friday, Saturday. And oftentimes Saturday is when they really talk a lot about community issues. Last year, for some of you might remember, the advisory team actually met with the council for a while. It was a really good session. We'll see, if this group feels, you might want to think about that. Do you want to talk directly to the council about housing? That might be a good time to bring your proposals forward. I'll kind of get back to you on that. So, yeah. Okay, there's lots to think about. I do know that Leah, who spoke here, is going to be at the second meeting of the council in January to get them thinking also about some of these potential housing projects that could happen. So we'll see where that goes too. Yeah, okay. Any questions before we time out tonight?
Can I just have a quick overview about what you and Lexi were talking about a second ago? You can't get something if you weren't.
So Lexi, do you want to just mention your friend or
Just because I have a question following that, if I understood you guys correctly.
So basically, my friend just was in a situation and was homeless, but not homeless. Like she had somewhere to go, but not for long, I guess. And so like
A temporary couch house.
yeah, and so basically, I mean, it wasn't communicated to her that she had to. They said one night, right? Is that what was said or whatever?
Wait, who is this though?
Probably has to be one night in a shelter
Yeah.
to mark that you are actually homeless.
It's like,
Yeah.
like what is the official
Fit the
definition
definition.
of homelessness?
Oh, yeah.
You know, like
Okay.
to qualify for homeless benefits or any type of service made for homeless people, how do you prove you're homeless?
Right.
The only proof right now is you have to verify that you spent the night in a shelter at least. You know?
And they basically said they couldn't help her unless that's what she did, but they didn't tell her a night. Like I guess they made it seem like it was like she had to stay there for a while. And so she was like, well, I'm not bringing my kids there. I figured something else out.
The language I've heard people use is time. You know, they'll say, you spent time in a homeless shelter.
Mhm.
You know, so like they don't say a day. I've always heard time. So based on your perception, you're like, no, I've not done time in a homeless shelter.
Yeah.
Right,
You know?
okay. Yeah, I was curious, that's ridiculous.
Walk in, walk out.
Exactly.
If there's-
You know.
So is that in this county or just,
Well, Sarah Kern, who's, obviously on the team, and she's head of Hope, and so she was more familiar with this and said, we just tell people it's one night, and so even if you had your kids stay somewhere, but you go to the shelter, then you could. But honestly, Sam, I don't know if that is a county or, it was my understanding it was bigger. But that may be just because the programs weren't local. If they're trying to get into programs that are run by a county or a
right,
state.
so that's kind of why I wondered if it was local or not, because like, I think here in a smaller community, it's easier for you to get into a shelter for that one night that you need in order to claim that homelessness. Whereas in different cities, in the middle of the wintertime, you don't have open opportunity to just walk in and say, I need somewhere to sleep tonight. So that's why I was curious if that's actual.
Yeah, up in Minneapolis, you have to wait at a shelter or at a location and then they'll give you a bed, but it's at a different location, so then you have to go on the complete opposite side of the city to get to that place.
Right.
So how do
And you don't always have
Like
transportation.
a bus or whatever.
They line up early.
Yeah.
So I want to see here.
If it says the door opens at 7, someone's been there since 1 o'clock.
So that's kind of why I was wondering, that must be just a county thing, because I don't see being able to claim homelessness. If you can't get into a shelter, but you've been on the streets for
Right.
days
Right.
with your children, you're still homeless.
Right. That's why I was like, I feel like
But
that's
you
just.
don't have any paper to prove you're homeless.
Yeah. Exactly.
Like she could have said she was sleeping in her car with her kids and she's still not homeless.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because she
Because she
didn't
didn't go to a shelter.
That
Yeah.
doesn't make sense to me. That's why I was curious if that's a
Yeah.
county thing, local thing. But I also had a, just a side branch off of that. For people who are, just on the verge, like fresh, we have no home, like they got evicted or, something happened where they can't stay where they were currently staying. Could we look into maybe options for people who may have to stay at a shelter or, couch hop at friends' houses and family houses, but they don't have anywhere to store their things? Because a lot of times you have so many days to get your things out of your apartment or house before your landlord will take it. Is there something we can, even if it's just brainstorm some ideas on how, maybe even Three Rivers has options, but where storage units where you could, get an extra 30 days to put your stuff there so you don't lose it all when you do, get up on your luck and find a place to go. And then you're empty-handed with nothing and starting from scratch. I don't know. I just thought maybe it might be easier for people when they do find a place that they don't have to do all this stuff.
I just have a question. If anybody knows the answer, please let me know. So if you're renting from someone and they say, okay, you have a lease up to like the middle of like the summer or whatever, and they said that they're gonna sell their house in the spring, are they able to do that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
If
crazy.
there's always a clause in there, like if a sale that,
Yeah, I was just wondering because, okay.
Wait, so if it's not in the lease agreement that you signed, can they still do
they
that?
still get it, if it changes hands, just like insurance or whatever. If you get divorced or a partner dies or you get married, then you have an option to get on insurance, but there's like certain, things that otherwise it's, like for medical assistance, it's a year long or for whatever. But if there's a marriage or there's a change in status, so that's, like any contract is like that.
Okay.
So.
Just wondering.
Yeah.
Because you can't force somebody to not, it's like if they're struggling financially as a landlord, you can't force them to like lose everything in bankruptcy when they can sell it or whatever. It's like,
No, I was just wondering.
Yeah.
I was just wondering.
I guess that's the deal, they own it. And
Yeah.
the renter doesn't own it.
yeah.
So
Right.
They have more power, I guess.
Yeah.
That happened to me a couple of years back. My landlord sold the house. We were having issues, so
Yeah.
he just sold the place.
Yeah.
But the new landlord was agreeable for a while. But no, had he decided, all right, I'm sick of you, then yeah, he was within his rights to give me whatever amount of time it is to move. Like, then I could have been homeless, but
Right.
whatever. He gave me whatever time. That he
Right,
had to
yeah.
give me. But thankfully that didn't happen.
Good. Good.
Well, thanks everybody. So we'll end this down for a little bit. We'll